Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. I'm already bored with Kid and Severide's Chicago Fire Season 13 baby story, before it even starts. Kelly Severide and Stella Kidd's story significantly moves forward in Chicago Fire Season 12, Episode 12, Relief Cut. But I'm having a difficult time being excited about it. Despite being a procedural, the One Chicago franchise separates itself from other Wolf Entertainment franchises by leaning a little more on the personal storylines of its characters. This is most true with Firehouse 51, where its members' narratives tend to be seamlessly integrated into its weekly cases. While everyone has their respective woes, it's safe to say that Chicago Fire's most prominent characters are Taylor Kinney's Severide and Miranda Ray Mayo's Kid. Like many chiehards, I'm having a difficult time remembering what Chicago Fire was without the couple. Romances are usual in Firehouse 51, with several characters dating a co-worker or two. However, because of the nature of their job, not to mention the show's long-term format, maintaining a happy relationship is tricky. Kid and Severide have underdone their fair share of crises, with the latest one being in the 2025 One Chicago crossover. After that, however, Chicago Fire Season 13 finally decides to move their personal narrative forward as the pair revisit their stance on starting a family. The couple has been married since the Season 10 finale, but Kid and Severide's story has been stagnant for a while. I'm mainly chalking it to Kinney's unexpected time off in the middle of Season 11, and the truncated run the following year. Even then, when Severide brought up the idea of starting a family in the Chicago Fire Season 12 finale, I was against it. I didn't want a pregnancy storyline that would take her agency. At that time, I even suggested that it was time for Kid and Severide's marriage to end. Admittedly, I'm still not happy with the way Chicago Fire didn't fully explore the fallout from Severide's disappearance, but at least, when the idea of having a kid is brought up again, it's coming from Kid. This alleviates my fears about a dramatic, unexpected pregnancy storyline that would drive a wedge between them. I'm convinced that Chicago Fire can keep their story interesting without pitting them against each other. That said, my excitement deflated when Kid suggested adopting instead of getting pregnant. While still better than a pregnancy twist trope, it's a tired storyline, especially in One Chicago. Being on the air for more than a decade, I understand that storylines and plots being redone is inevitable. As long as NBC and One Chicago come up with fresh twists, I assume that die-hard viewers will continue to tune in because they are invested in the characters' journeys. That being said, doing another adoption story for Severide and Kid at this point is just wildly uninspired. We've seen this plot done so many times with Matt Casey and Gabby Dawson, and later on with Sylvie Brett. Joe Cruz also underwent the same route when it came to expanding his family. Beyond Chicago Fire, Chicago PD's Intelligence has also told a similar story with Kim Burgess and Michaela. It did a great job making sure that it was compelling because of the mystery that came with it. At this point, I don't think One Chicago can do another one that is intriguing enough for its viewers. While I appreciate that Chicago Fire Season 12 explains why Kid wants to adopt thanks to the introduction of his cousin, the storyline altogether isn't the narrative I wanted for her and Severide. Ultimately, Kid getting pregnant is a more interesting way for her and Severide to start a family. Not because adoption isn't a good way to do it, but purely because of storytelling purposes. Going down this creative route can open new narrative opportunities for Chicago Fire, and for a show that has already been on the air for years, not to mention dipping ratings, it could rejuvenize the procedural. Understandably, doing this after Kid blatantly saying that she isn't sure yet if she wants to be pregnant means that it would be a while before they can have a child. However, I would rather wait for a better way to do this than rush it and come up with a plot that isn't satisfying. Given Kid and Severide's importance to the Chicago Fire, they deserve only good stories moving forward. Let's be honest, Chicago Fire's Season 13 baby storyline for Kid and Severide already feels like a snooze fest. And we haven't even seen a single diaper change. For a couple that thrives on intensity, passion, and high-stakes drama, a domestic baby plot just seems like the absolute last thing their characters need. And yet here we are gearing up for the same tired narrative TV dramas love to force-feed us. Strong woman finds herself softened by impending motherhood, while the rugged man who runs into burning buildings suddenly worries about being a good dad. Haven't we seen this before, multiple times, in multiple shows? It's not that babies ruin shows. Sometimes a well-written storyline about parenthood can add depth to a character. But this is Chicago Fire. This is a show that thrives on adrenaline-pumping rescues, firehouse drama, and high-intensity action sequences. Adding a baby into the mix all but guarantees a shift in focus, and not in a way that's particularly interesting. What's next? Kid debating which brand of baby wipes to use while Severide stresses about assembling a crib before his next shift. Riveting. Severide and Kid work because they are equals. They challenge each other. They fight fires together. They are partners in every sense of the word, both on and off the job. But the moment the pregnancy arc kicks in, we all know what's going to happen. Kid will get sidelined. She'll be taking it easy instead of running headfirst into danger. Will be subjected to numerous worried glances from Severide every time she lifts something heavier than a coffee mug. And of course, the inevitable big pregnancy scare moment where she insists she can still do her job, only for it to end in some dramatic emergency that makes everyone realize she needs to slow down. Yawn. And then there's Severide, the same Severide who has always been an adrenaline junkie, a risk-taker, a firefighter who throws himself into danger with barely a second thought. Now, we're supposed to believe he's suddenly going to be a worried, overprotective, expectant father, that he'll sit around debating preschools instead of jumping into the next high-risk rescue. It's not just boring, it's out of character. Chicago Fire has never been great at handling long-term romantic relationships. Remember Casey and Brett? Their relationship had the emotional weight of a wet paper towel before the show ultimately wrote Casey out. They never knew what to do with Stella and Severide either. One season they're together, the next they're breaking up, then they're married, now they're expecting a baby. It all feels forced, like the writers weren't sure where else to take them, and that's the real problem here. This baby storyline feels less like an organic development for the characters and more like a forced attempt to evolve their arc. But not every couple needs a baby to evolve. Kid and Severide are one of the best pairs the show has ever had because they don't need the typical domestic tropes to be interesting. They don't need to be bogged down by sleep deprivation, baby monitors, and endless discussions about work-life balance. Their love story has always been about passion, about two people who share the same dangerous but thrilling world. So why take that away? Of course, some might argue that the show could surprise us, that the writers might find a way to make this compelling. But given Chicago Fire's track record, the odds are slim. If we're lucky, maybe we'll get some genuinely sweet moments between them. Maybe we'll get some fun firehouse banter about baby names. But more than likely, we'll be stuck with a watered-down version of these two beloved characters, waiting for the inevitable dramatic birth scene, where Severide nearly misses it due to a last-minute rescue mission. Honestly, this storyline already feels played out before it even begins. Kid and Severide deserve better, and so do we.